Watch this video with our virtual reality glasses for smartphone. virtualvisor.com.
We have an awesome panel today. I'm going to ask them to get as specific as possible and kind of talk specifically about niches or projects that you've worked on. So the more specific, the better. I think that we are all here because we understand inherently how powerful this medium is. So let's assume that, and how are we like kind of getting in there and getting it done. So we'll talk about the creative process. We're going to talk about distribution, what you guys are thinking, what you guys are seeing, kind of advice and sort of action to people. We'll be talking about success metrics as well, and how do you measure a good campaign, and how do you kind of look at those types of numbers. So I'm going to have everyone go down the row and introduce yourself. My name is Malia. I'm brand director at VRScout, and yeah, Clay?
I'm Clay Weishaar. I'm a creative director at Tool of North America. We do Experiential VR and live action.
I'm Cacace. I'm the founder and CEO of Vertebrae. We are a virtual reality advertising platform based in Santa Monica.
Hi, Christine Lee with Immersive. I'm also an advertising platform for virtual reality based in San Francisco and LA.
Jennifer Richey. I'm one of the original founders of Gravity Jack, and I'm actually in Washington State, so I get the award for traveling farthest. We do custom solutions for augmented reality, virtual reality, mobile apps, 360, all of the above.
Hey guys, I'm Donny Makower. I'm the president of Red Interactive Agency. We're a customer experience agency with deep roots in digital, and we work across the entire ecosystem of the brand.
Cool, thanks guys. So let's talk about, first, I'm going to get into the case studies in a moment. Let's first kind of talk about development and education, right? So how are you guys perhaps getting your teams internally up to speed? So how are you perhaps building out your in-house VR, AR, 360 strategy? If you are one of the companies that provides that solution, how are you educating your clients? So Clay, do you want to talk?
Yeah, I think for us, having a really good creative technologist introduced us to VR early, and then from there we started building stuff. Remember, he got the Oculus VK1 and he's like, okay, let's make something. Everybody loves South Park in our office, so we created South Park VR just based on a passion project, and from there it spiraled.
Nice.
Yeah, so we're more of a technology platform, but we do, before we race around, and even still we'll do some services projects, mostly on the interactive side, and try and keep up to date with, some of the most cutting edge production techniques. Like we've been doing some stuff with making ad units where you do kind of stop motion animation with 3D printed characters. You can get a higher level of fidelity in mobile VR with a lower time of production. So we've been messing around with some of that stuff, but try and stay up to date on the space. And then from a 360 video perspective, we generally work with production partners.
Awesome. Christine?
So also kind of a similar angle in that we are a tech company versus a content producer. So I would say in terms of how we educate ourselves, there's kind of two main things. First is actually looking at historical, right? Looking at what happened on digital, what happened on mobile. How can we apply what we've learned there, whether it's mistakes, whether it's successes, to VR, right? And in the case of advertising, there's a lot of things that we've learned, which is, don't throw an ad in someone's face, or make sure you could get out of the ad once you're showing it to them. Make sure that there's a flow that works from end to end. So I would say educating from the past is one thing, and then now is educating from what we're actually seeing on the network, which is super interesting. So we're live and we're able to see with all the different publishers that have integrated us really interesting data from what platforms are users on, how are they engaging with the content, to what day of the week are they on? Is it weekends heavy? Is it night heavy? We're also seeing where is the actual traffic? Like, are people in Asia? Are people in Europe? And we're able to see all those numbers and actually learn and adjust the products based on that.
We've got a bit of a different angle than a lot of the people on the panel, in that we again do the custom solutions and custom angles that are a wide variety. So we can go from what has worked in the past, or at least what has been used in the past, what's been talked about in the past. The team is very much on, again, we do a variety, so we stay up to speed on the different platforms the different devices that, that we're recommending ultimately to our clients. So it's really staying on top of what's current and what's coming. Because if we're doing a mobile app experience or, even if it's headset Vive for any of the above, there's a cycle in the development. So we want to make sure we're looking forward to what's coming, what's going to be released here in the next 1, 2, 3 months. And if it's a 6-month project, we can say, this is what's coming, let's integrate it into your strategy now.
How do you sort of focus on your clients, and how do you get them up to speed? Like, how do you do that education process with the client on the client side, right?
Yeah, it's definitely an art, because you're teaching them, first, some of them, you're telling them a hole that they have that they didn't know was present, and then you're saying, I have a solution for this hole that you didn't even know existed. So it's definitely a very creative way, but some of our best work is tell us your problems. If our clients come to us with the problems, then we can internally, creatively strategize on how we can solve their problems from a technology standpoint, be it VR, AR, or subtle ways that we can connect all of them in a mixed reality type scenario.
Okay. Donny, what about you? How about education and development sort of internally, and then perhaps on the client side as well?
Right, so we're an agency that works with a lot of big brands, many of which are global. And so we have 8 different business units within the agency, one of which is called RedX, they're our internal innovations team. And we focus around customer experience innovations, which often centers around AR and VR opportunities. And so they, quite a long time ago, did a deep dive into this space. We also spun up our research and insights team, which sits inside our experience design team. And together, they put together a large-scale presentation. We have all the gear in our office. I mean, everything. It's like a big playground. Sometimes we have kids of Red come over and have fun. And we've experimented with all the gear. We've looked at the landscape. We understand what it takes to create different types of content. So we created a big internal presentation, and this RedX team essentially went around to all of our different groups and did little TED Talks for all of our different business units internally to bring everyone up to speed. And we are often doing some version of that for our clients, because almost to a point you were making, this reminds me of like when the App Store first came around and then you had every brand going, we need an app. It didn't even start with a goal. It was just like, we need an app, what should it be? And then it's like knowing you want an app, you're trying to back into a solution. There's something similar happening now where it's like, we know we need to do something with VR. It's like, that's not really the right approach. So, what are your goals? What are you trying to create? What kind of customer experience? And then we should look to VR or AR or whatever and see if that should be part of the customer experience journey. So there is some education that needs to happen there still.
Yeah, that fundamental question is why VR first and foremost. Right?
Yeah.
Clay, I want to go to you, and let's talk about case studies and focuses and sort of specific niches that you guys focus on. From the ad platform guys, I would love to kind of hear how you make branded units in these experiences that aren't intrusive. You know what I mean? How do you make sure it's something that people don't want to opt out of? How do you make sure it's something that's kind of like intuitive? So if you can kind of like maybe build that into this case study, that would be awesome. Clay from Tool.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited about this one. We just finished it. It's a project for Adidas called Project Harden. And Adidas came to us. They had a massive event. They wanted to launch a shoe, but they didn't want any product leaks because it's a huge, huge thing for them, a big concern. And one thing that a VR kind of experiential event does, it allows people to see the actual product, but they can't take it with them. They have it in their memory. So we did a project where we went to a giant basketball camp in Las Vegas, and we created a haptic kind of experiential VR experience. We had 4 pillars. People would step up onto it, put on a Samsung Gear. We synced live action with fans and haptic vibrations under their feet and tied that into a narrative. And it was fascinating, but the big takeaway I think from it, and when you say niche, I had never heard this before the event, but it really solves that client problem of product leaks, and I think that was a real learning experience for us.
Awesome, thank you.
So from our perspective, we have a campaign live right now with Lionsgate for the new Blair Witch movie, and it's this really cool like interactive horror VR ad experience where you're right next to the Blair Witch house in the woods, and there's kind of all this terrifying stuff that's happening around you, and the ad actually lives as a pre-roll. And in this case, it's a gaze-based interactive on-rails experience, meaning that from an ad perspective, within virtual ad experience, you don't want to have to teach a user navigation or controls per se, but you want it to feel interactive. And so some of the ways that we do that are with gaze-based interaction, where because I'm looking this way, I can make a bunch of terrifying stuff happen behind me, and then whenever the user turns around and sees it and it wasn't there before, they think something's behind them, and then there's scare moments that are triggered by specific turns. And so we try and leave it up to the publisher from the perspective of, do they want to do something that's native within their content, or that lives as a pre-roll or alongside their content. And some content is conducive to advertising, right? And other times it's not, and if it'll mess up the narrative of the content, in this case, Lionsgate approached us and they said, we want a contextually relevant ad experience geared towards a horror audience that can fulfill a certain single-digit million X number of impressions. And so, it was kind of more of a matchmaking at that point. And I mean, that's kind of where we are as an industry from an advertising platform perspective, right? There's not, 20 advertisers bidding for the same spot on a piece of content. It's, a Chinese menu list on the demand and the supply side, and kind of some hand-holding in the process. And so, through that experience, we have kind of some interesting data to share from it as well that I guess we'll get to in a little bit.
Cool. Christine?
I guess we're thinking Halloween, because I'll give another horror example. So one of our partners right now is Warner Brothers, and they did the Conjuring 2 360 experience. So I'll actually just walk through kind of two different things. So first, the case study of what did that look like, how did that render, and then break away from that and give some stats on how that actually looks within ads. So first, just for Conjuring 2, the way that this would work is within our network of publishers, publishers would integrate the ads so that way it's usually opt-in, so something like a check out more VR content, or this is sponsored by Warner Brothers, or something that's like you want to get to the next level, or check out more content, unlock this by watching a VR ad, so something that's a value exchange. So that would be the first step, and then the user's in, and it's in that 360 super creepy experience. And of course at the end they have the decision of, hey, do I want to see the full experience, or do I want to get the home entertainment release, or do I want to go into the theater? They have all those options. So that's kind of the end-to-end flow of like, what does a VR ad look like today? In terms of the actual stats, we're really excited about the numbers that we're seeing. So this isn't Warner Brothers, this is just like network-wide. So what we're seeing for video right now, the completion rates that we're seeing for end-to-end, 15 to 30 second, 360 video is like 80%. And anyone who's been in ads knows that like on digital and mobile, like that's crazy. Like it's usually 20 to 30% or lower. And then folks that get to that landing page that's like, okay, yes, I want to see the whole thing. This is awesome. This is super scary. That interaction is like 30 to 40%, which is also crazy because on mobile, as most people know, it's under 1%. So, so far from a case study standpoint, like we're really excited about the numbers, and we know that they're going to taper off eventually. But right now it's hot, it's new, users want to see content, they want to see these trailers, and they're definitely showing it in the numbers.
I was looking at literally apples to apples. A company did a kind of a test, and they ran the same content in a traditional two-dimensional video, and then did the exact same content, exact same copy in 360, and it was like 100% better in terms of engagements, impressions, and click-throughs, and then actual completion rates. It was insane. So the engagement period, on Facebook, it's a pretty big gorilla, and yeah, those types of numbers are pretty impressive. Jennifer, what about you? Can you walk us through a case study from Gravity Jack and kind of how you go through that pipeline?
Yeah, definitely. So we a couple come to mind. Again, we love asking our clients, what's your problem, so that we can try to find the solution for them. Sometimes they don't know. They just come at you with a load of problems, and they're thinking, do it. So a lot of ours too are integrating VR. So in the entertainment industry and gaming, VR is just a no-brainer, right? It's I don't want to say an easy sell, but it's very, very relevant. So integrating VR into a lot of more real-world use cases, for lack of a better word, is trickier. A couple that we've done that pop out that can be expanded exponentially is just transporting people. being able to, I mean, it's immersive, so you want to know what it feels like to be somewhere or to see something, whatever that environment is. If it's an institution, if it's a location, think universities, you're transporting the user there in a really immersive way. A fun, quirky one that comes to mind is the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. It's an app we did. We've done a couple editions for them. And one of their problems was people always want to ask to drive this Wienermobile, and you can't drive it. So we're like, you might have a solution with that. And so you can actually experience what it's like, and we did that with 360 video, and we have different options. I call it Cyclops view, so when you don't have a headset, you can use the Cyclops view where you're holding up your device and you're still getting the full 360 experience, and then you can toggle over to get the headset. So that's a fun one. Another is being able to see, we did some work with Defense Forensics Department, being able to see their labs. So they have deployed labs all over the world. And this allowed people to know what it was like in these labs that are, you know, collecting and processing forensics data in a space the size of a shipping container. So it really is, it transports people. This is what's happening, and this is what it feels like because you're putting them in VR.
Sure. Donny, what about you? Can you walk us through a case study and kind of maybe what the goals were, you know, on that campaign?
So over the years, we've done a lot of work in the automotive space for a variety of different auto brands. And also within our research and insights team, we've done a lot of deep dive analysis of the landscape and where the auto industry is headed. I will tell you the dealership experience is not going to be the same years from now as it is today, because most people hate it, right? People just many people dread going to buy a car. It's a nerve-wracking experience. They don't know what to expect. They think they're going to be had, all kinds of things. Right, and so we've been creating pretty interesting prototypes around a VR car customizer. You have a car in an environment. We already have this working. And we're using the HTC Vive, and you're physically walking around the room. So when you have the model of the car drop in, you can walk around the car. You could actually walk under it and like bend down and look underneath it and feel like you're there. You can just use the hand controllers, and you could change the colors of the panels, you could change the wheels, and you can even share it out to your phone so that you would end up getting like a 360 image of it with your car at different angles in the environment. You could spin it. So we're kind of doing a little bit of future casting with this, and we think that car customizer is an interesting place to play.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I want to customize a car. Speaking of that kind of like creative process and something that all of us have, I even think that maybe creation tools in VR people are maybe underestimating the average person's kind of appetite for creation, right? So when we're talking about that creative process and that kind of creative desire, how do you translate a brand's idea into something that works and functions in this medium, right? So if you guys could get really specific and talk about hardware, talk about constraints like time and cost, that would be super helpful, I think. Clay, what about you and that creative process?
Time and cost.
Yeah.
Can't really speak to that.
Yeah.
I'd say for us in the creative process, we approach things working with our director, defining the story, and sort of like building out, you know, what that story, what that message is. And I think that that's very similar with traditional media. But once we've got the story decided, then we kind of work with our head of VR to define, you know, camera angles, what's going to tell the story the best, what's going to direct the user's attention. Specific example would be Digitas, where we wanted the person to be engaged enough not to just look at the shoe in front of them. So we came up with a story where it was kind of like a monkey in the middle scenario, and you had to kind of follow this person. So you'd hear a basketball bouncing over here, you'd feel the haptic response on your right side. It would cause you to look and see that person, and then they'd run and they'd do a jump shot over on your left. So you give the user enough time to register, you use 3D sound. But really, I think the biggest thing, and this is like we say to our clients over and over, is you really got to be in the headset. You really have to try it. We just did a collaboration with a VFX supervisor from Titanic, and he's a master. He's been doing this for years and years. VR, you know, he's dived into that, but he's like, you got to look at it. You got to experience it. Like if you're creating motion graphics coming at you, you don't know where that's going to register inside the headset. So I think the more you're actually in the situation looking at it, the better. Something that's huge for us is Unreal Engine lets you build stuff inside the headset. You get a sense of scale. I think that's going to change the way a lot of content's being produced.
Thank you. Vince, how about the creative process? How do you guys kind of funnel that through and help solve those needs?
Yeah, so I think there's an inverse relationship between interactivity and distribution, where if a brand, so many brand meetings that we're in, a brand will say, have you seen the Magic Leap website? Like, we want the whale jumping in the gym, and you're like, that's not real. But you have this kind of inverse relationship where if they want to do a really cool room scale experience, the end audience that's going to be able to consume that content is much smaller, naturally just by the hardware limitations at this point. And so conversely, on the 360 video side, Facebook and YouTube and some of the aggregators have much bigger audiences. So it kind of comes down to the brand and their goals. We generally push brands to focus on mobile for 3 reasons. One, there's a lot more users right now, and then there's a wider demographic of those users. So some of them, instead of just being 18 to 34 male gamers, they're female head of household decision makers that got a cardboard, with their New York Times subscription. And then the third reason is that mobile VR content is more casual in nature and generally more conducive to advertising. And so kind of that mix of reasons is generally why we're kind of pushing brands that direction for now, although the premium stuff is really cool. I don't think we're there yet.
Cool. Christine, how about you in the creative process? And when we're even talking about sort of different tiers of hardware, right? Vince mentioned something about, kind of gaze activated interactivity, and then we're also talking about like in the future, the eye tracking and those types of things. How do those kind of maybe tie into those tiers of hardware, and how do you work through that creative process from the ad platform side?
Yeah, so I'll kind of answer the original question not as us being a content creator, but working with really amazing content creators and giving some examples there. So Fox Sports recently did the whole live streaming of college football, which is super, super cool. And we did a campaign with them where we actually promoted, like, here's, content on, like, this is what it's going to look like in headset, and then download this, and on that day, on Saturday at this time, check out this content, live stream that now. So the kind of purpose of me talking about this isn't how creative is this process right now, but what is the potential of this in the future? And there's already been rumoring, so this is more of me saying from like editorial versus actually knowing, but I've heard them say from press or from actually this conference that they're gonna do even more, right? Things where they're integrating with social and you're able to actually get a room together, right? Or get, what do you call that?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, the little
Facebook's
booth thing,
going
right?
hardcore
Yeah.
on the rooms and the parties.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll be hanging out on Facebook.
Exactly, but the potential of that, where like instead of paying $200 to fly somewhere and watch an actual game, like to do that with your friends that live in New York and San Francisco and actually be able to do that together. So I think it's an interesting time right now where creativity is kind of at its beginning. And I think with all the social and ideally with more distribution, that's going to become a lot more real. And then to go back to your second question, just about kind of
the gaze activated versus eye tracking, kind of where we are right now and where do you think it's headed?
Yeah, so that's also an area of just huge potential, right? Like in terms of eye tracking and heat mapping, like I think it's definitely coming. I think right now though, marketers first want to know the basics, right? Like what is it that are IAB standards? What is it that every marketer is used to having their metrics based on, which is view completion, action, right, and being able to track that whole funnel. I think with gaze control and with eye tracking, there's more that's coming, but frankly, there aren't standards yet. We're excited about it. We're testing around with that, but I think it's at least another year until there's an actual standard of like, looking at this apple in the room, then you could charge an advertiser this thing, right? We're just not there yet, but it's definitely coming.
Okay, thanks. And Jennifer, back to the creative process and how you like really tangibly like talked a brand's idea into life, and how you made something real out of a concept?
It's kind of the thing that I've learned, or all of us at GJ have learned over the years, and especially lately, is our clients have a certain level of ignorance, and I don't mean that in any negative way at all. They just don't know what they don't know. Hence the whale. You know, you get, I'd love to have the whale pop out, and you're like, so would I. It's not real. and then you kind of give them a few more examples of, hey, this is what's out there. You may have seen it that's not real, and that's okay. It's just more of an educating them, and then setting their expectations of what is possible. And then you can flow through and giving them options. So with creative process or the particular angle, say it's a trade show event. Love conferences, trade shows, product releases for VR because it's really controlled. Again, back to the standards. There are no standards. There's no expectations by users yet. So we as developers or VR ad marketing trying to get into the minds of the users is a tricky spot. Because what we think, this is it. This is what they're going to do. They're going to love this. And then the thing they like is just 180 degrees the opposite direction sometimes. So, setting realistic expectations in the beginning of the actual technologies themselves, and then giving them options. So here's what a VR experience looks like in, again, the Cyclops view. So nobody has a headset, but you can still experience it. This is how. Then you can toggle switch to do, putting your device into a headset. Why is this valuable? You can brand those cardboard headsets or whatever brand, whatever, there's so many out there now. Whatever you want to do. So having that as an option to brand that and give to your consumers. The tertiary one is maybe it is on site and you're able to do Vive and you're able to have a more immersive and get under the car and experience it. And there's different levels in which you can do that. So that really intense, super immersive experience on site controlled, the user can't really take away. They can't take it with them. A cardboard headset, they can. They can use it anywhere they want. And again, you give them the option of, we still have them using VR when they don't have access to any sort of wearable. So.
Right. Yeah. How do you guys take an idea and turn it into something tangible, VR, AR, 360, whatever it is?
Well, there's a pretty extensive process. I could just tell you to speak to maybe a different phase of it than what's been mentioned. Is we have this process called our SVP process, which is strategic vision and planning. And it starts with this immersion workshop that we do where we have people coming, stakeholders from the brand, that come and spend anywhere from 1 to 2 days with us. And it's a very customized workshop with activities that go all around our large conference room. And by the end of it, we really looked into their soul, right? We get down to the DNA level of what they're trying to achieve and why. It goes back to the why again. Like, why are we talking VR? And oftentimes, we try to not have the conversation be there. What are you trying to achieve? So there's this process that we need to go through based on what their goals are. Is the goal to reach a great number of people, in which case you're back in Google Cardboard, right? Because you need mass access. Is your goal for it to be a PR stunt? And by the way, we need to have a broader lens than that, because anything that we might think of within the VR space is still, in our view, part of a broader customer experience journey. What are they doing as it relates to brand before they even started that VR experience, and what are they doing after? And are those things related or are they not? Because, customers expect a seamless experience across all brand touch points. And so we make sure that as part of the creative process that we have a broader view of it, and then we narrow down, and then there's a creative process that unfolds.
Right on. So when we're kind of talking about distribution, we're talking about market size, right? We're talking about quality and how the quality is in inverse relationship with the market size. And so you have all these kind of different tiers. We have the most accessible tier, something that utilizes your smartphone. So the Gear VR is kind of the best out of that right now. Google Daydream just got released, and then Google Cardboard, you can fit your iOS right in there and see some content, right? So then we have the middle, PlayStation VR that just came out, and then we have the big boys like HTC Vive and Oculus Rift, which both require really beefy PCs. So we have different tiers of hardware. We have a very fragmented distribution ecosystem. So how do you navigate that? What's your take on the current climate of that distribution ecosystem? And then maybe give us an example of why you chose one form of distribution or hardware, whatever it is. Like, walk us through that and why did you choose that specifically? That would be really super helpful.
Cool. Yeah, so for us, it's definitely a question of reach. Our clients, both Digitas and Ford, 2 recent projects we did, they wanted eyeballs, they wanted reach. So the obvious choice is, Facebook and YouTube, and I think that that's just kind of a no-brainer. And as you mentioned, Gear VR is like kind of that middle ground. With Ford, we actually built Ford VR, which was a custom platform mobile app for them. We did that because they wanted to release content in their own platform, and it just gave us the reach that we needed. We built a Gear VR version for that as well, but it's definitely Facebook, YouTube, and mobile right now. I think, it could be interesting to see what Hulu does in the future. That could actually rival the two.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm very interested as well in what Hulu is doing in space for sure. Vince, what about you? We're talking about distribution, we're talking about hardware and that kind of nascent bubblings of some type of structure.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a multi-pronged approach. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we're very focused on mobile at the moment. But from a distribution perspective, there's opportunities to kind of bridge the gap between what's currently available now from a hardware perspective versus where we're going later, and how do we bring some of those eyeballs that are that maybe don't have a hardware platform today, or anything outside of their mobile device, but to a VR experience. And so an effective way that we've found to do that is outside of VR entirely, just in regular mobile. So the example that I generally give people here is that nobody's playing Pokemon Go in a HoloLens, right? They're playing it on a mobile phone, because that's where kind of the state of the industry is. And so what we're doing, we can do 360 video ads in web and mobile, where you could imagine that as waving your phone across your face and seeing different sides of a 360 video. But today that has access to all the reach and scale and sophisticated targeting that advertisers are used to. And then through that, you actually see publishers acting as advertisers as a means to drive discovery of their content as well. And so that's kind of something we've seen as an effective mechanism where, take a company like New York Times, for example, where they have a 360 app where they're making 360 content on a weekly cadence, sometimes a monthly cadence, and they have their own VR cardboard app, right? And they're trying to draw downloads to that app. Well, kind of their longer term business goal, right, is to drive subscriptions to the New York Times. So if you think about, a model like this 360 advertising in web and mobile, they're advertising their content itself. So say Man on Spire or any 360 video. So they're getting more eyeballs on that content, and then they're doing it with a download link to the store to download their app. So they're drawing more downloads to their app, and they can target that against competitive subscribers or whoever they're trying to reach. And that could be true for any publisher, but that's just kind of one successful method that we've seen in terms of kind of creating a multi-pronged approach just to get more people into the environment and finding the content.
Cool. Christine, what's your take on distribution?
Yeah, so I completely agree that the market right now is super fragmented. I'd love to do kind of a lay of the land of where are the numbers. So I'm sure most people have looked at articles and all that, but here's where it is, right? So mobile VR today, it's cardboard. Google has reported somewhere between 1 to 3 million unique users out there. Gear VR, right, Samsung headset, Oculus ecosystem, that's about 1 to 2 million unique users as well. And then with Daydream coming out, I think in the next year we're going to see numbers larger than that. So that's mobile VR today. Then you are looking at the PC versions. So right now with Vive and Oculus combined, it's probably in the hundreds of thousands right now combined. And then with Sony coming out, they've said about 1 million. It's probably going to be somewhere below that until the end of the year. Hopefully that next year. And then we go to China, right? And then in China, you've got maybe 30 different kind of that are saying they're the leading headsets, and it's a mix of the Deepoons and the Baofangs and the Picos, and there's so many, and they all have their own app stores and their own ecosystems, but they're also getting distribution. So combined, there's millions of those headsets out there. So today, if you count that up, that's 10 million users. Which is actually a pretty addressable market. So anyway, that's fragmentation today. As a platform for us to actually analyze that, we want to go where the users are going, right? And where the actual platforms are pushing and where the content is actually going. So we've also chosen today, our focus is on mobile VR. We are building for some of the premium HMVs. But we also went through a similar transition where we realized, okay, headsets are amazing, we're really excited about in-headset, but there's so much that's happening with 360 because of Facebook and YouTube and these cameras, right? It's just super easy. So we also have recently built out a way for users to toggle between the dual screen stereoscopic versus that monoscopic like magic window, and you could check it out. You could go to Google Play Store and download Jurassic VR. On that actual app, when you are in that mono screen in that game, then you'll see the mono screen ads, and if you're in the dual screen, then you'll see the dual screen ads. So we're just kind of adjusting to the industry and following based on that.
Sweet. Jennifer, what about you in distribution?
So with the distribution with a lot of our clients, and again, I hate to go back to that ignorance, but they don't necessarily know. And it's not field of dreams. It's not if you build it, they will come, right? They're just thinking, oh, we're going to do this awesome thing, and everybody's going to know about it, and then it's going to be a big hit. But the users don't know either. So if the users don't know the content is out there, they don't have any clue to even look for it. If they don't have any reason to search for that content that's out there. So how that ties into distribution is with kind of what we're going, I think we're all on the same page on the multi-pronged approach, because it depends on the audience. And you need to appeal to all of the audiences. You don't want to just do Samsung Gear VR, because then you lost half the iOS market. And you know, you've got the Google Cardboard, which is great, but then you want to include more immersion, more interaction. So having those experiences, again, I'm with everybody here that mobile is definitely where it's at, but having that beefed up Vive or Oculus version, if it's within the brand's goals and intentions, and you know, reaching that. So
Cool. And Donny, I think that you might have some interesting input on the distribution issue, just kind of doing what, you know, going to the car example and choosing the HTC Vive. Can you kind of unpack room scale, kind of unpack the HTC Vive, why did you go with that, and kind of focus on that and how it's really part of that like buying process?
Sure, yeah, and a lot of it has been covered, but as it relates to that specifically, right, today you only have so many consumers. It's not like this is ready to roll out like in a massive way.